Bowhunting Whitetails. I think I could yell. I could probably make as much noise as I wanted to right now and the deer wouldn't hear me. I got about a 20-mile-an-hour wind straight out of the northwest. It's not real cold out. It's probably high 20s maybe, right around 30, somewhere in that range. But it feels cold with that wind. I'm sitting about 300 yards maybe, roughly, to the southeast from where we sat yesterday. It's on that same ridge. This is an area where there's another buck here too. I mean, I'm still trying to shoot that deer we call the Jordan buck, but there's an 8-pointer here that I would definitely shoot. He came by when we were in this stand a couple weeks ago, right at last light. It was too dark. And he's definitely a mature buck. That would be my number 2 target on the farm this year. I think he was on the stealth camera further up this ridge, maybe yesterday morning. I don't pay real close attention to the time frames on some of the deer that I find on these cell cameras, but I do like being able to tell what the overall movement patterns are. And it did seem like yesterday there was quite a bit of movement around this area, just more daylight movement than I've seen in a while. We're probably at least an hour into legal shooting time here. We still haven't seen a deer. That is not a good sign, because we're not sitting too far from the food. And if they were out in the fields this morning or last night feeding, I would have thought they would have come through here fairly early, heading back into the bedding area, which would be basically to our south. But that's not really true either, because this whole stretch between where we sat yesterday all day and where we're sitting now is really thick. We did a lot of TSI work in there, and it's super thick in that direction. So I know they bed on that whole stretch. So there's no such thing as a specific bedding area here. It's pretty general. This whole ridge should be pretty good. But that also means that during the rut, the buck should come cruising through here looking for the does. And that's what makes this spot hopefully productive beyond the first hour in the morning when the deer would be coming back off the fields. We're going to stay in here for as long as we can tolerate this wind, and then we're going to drop down into the valley below and hunt the scrape tree. There's a bunch of beans down there. That should be a really good spot. Be nice to sit in that stand and look at that field and see where the deer are coming out, what's coming out. Hopefully they're starting to move back to food now, like we've been predicting. That is the plan. There's always a plan, right? It just seems like most of the time the plan just doesn't work. Maybe today it will. Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails is brought to you by Redneck Blinds, Code of Silence Apparel, Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail app, Whitetail Institute, Research Equals Results, B3 Releases, XO Broadheads, Exact Sights, Muddy Outdoors Tree Stands, Stealth Cam Trail Cameras, and Hoyt. Is there Jordan buck. That's him. Are you on him? Has happened in the last hour. I never would have guessed that with all this wind, of course I like wind anyway, but now we've been seeing a lot of deer. Whole group of does and fawns came in from the south, further out on the point, and well, they kind of caught us by surprise, milled around in front, and I finally got a sort of clean shot at one of them. There was a little brush close to the doe, but when the brush is close to the deer, little branches like that, especially with a fixed blade broadhead, you can shoot through that pretty easy and not get much of a deflection. So she should be down, but then, gosh, probably 15 or 20 minutes later, the buck that we're hunting, we call him the Jordan buck, he showed up about 150 yards, maybe close to 200 yards out in front. And I tried grunting at him, but it's so windy that I'm sure he didn't hear it. And I tried to snort wheeze, but it was kind of a weak snort wheeze, and I know he didn't hear that either. But he crossed this ridge that we're on onto maybe the east side. It's real thick over there. That's where we did all that timber cutting. And it wasn't too long after that, the does that came in when I shot that one popped back out again and then headed back in the direction roundabout that they'd come from, kind of cut back across the ridge. So I figured he must have bumped him out. So he's probably, it's hard to say where he's at right now, but if I had to guess, he's in that thick cover somewhere between where we are and where we were sitting yesterday. I don't really know how that changes my plans. Gosh. You know, I wish he would have come back out so we could have seen where he was, because when we exit the spot, if we stay on the lane that we used to drive in here, we'll kind of drive past that whole area. I don't know that he could see us because it's pretty thick, but it just brings into question a lot of logistics. Even with recovering that doe, it's going to be a little bit tricky because she ran in the direction where, you know, he ended up, although I don't think she went very far. My guess is she's piled up not too far in there and pretty close to that road, so we should be able to get her out pretty easy. So we'll stay for a few more hours here and just see if he resurfaces somewhere. If not, I don't know, I might go back to the original plan and head down by the beans for this evening, because it seems like that's where all the deer were coming from. Like they were coming up out of the bottom up onto this ridge, and that means that they were probably feeding out in those beans last night. And I don't know, it's hard to figure out what to do sometimes. You just have to make a plan that sort of makes sense and then get lucky. It's kind of the place that I'm at right now. I don't know whether to stay here, go down to the other stand. I don't think I'll do that, because I think we run a risk of bumping him then, you know, if he can swing around and go into the stand that we were in yesterday. Or stick with the original plan and go down to the beans where I think the deer are going to be heading this evening. You know, it's always a guessing game. This wind is just pounding us. I think if it wasn't so windy, it wouldn't be too bad, because it's above freezing now. The snow is melting. But we're gonna get out of here, go find that doe, and get back to the building. The buck must have gone on through. It's been probably an hour and a half or more since we saw him, and I was hoping that he would work his way back through that thick cover in our direction, but who knows where he went. You know, he went on through though. So probably stick with the plan, go down and hunt the beans tonight, just see what's going on down there, and then maybe come back up here again tomorrow morning. That might be a pretty good plan. It's supposed to be the same wind, maybe not quite as blowing quite as hard, but the same direction. So we're gonna climb down and work our way out of here. This one makes up for about 20 other ones. If you look over my shoulder, she's laying dead on the trail. Probably can't quite see her, but we'll go up and get the buggies. We'll just come down, hook up to her, and drag her out into the bottom and gut her someplace else. But it's pretty comical. I was hoping when I saw her run this way that she'd wind up down here by the trail, but she actually wound up right on the trail. It's the afternoon of the 21st, and we're going to go up to the scrape tree, like I said this morning. That is a spot that lots of food there. The deer seem like they prefer beans right now. We're seeing that in a few other places where they're really favoring the beans. So hopefully we can see something come out, and if we're lucky, maybe that Jordan buck will come out this evening onto the beans. We're running late. Amos was quartering up that doe that I shot this morning, and I was working on editing yesterday's hunt to post. So we got about 2.5 hours left of legal shooting time, roughly. Is that right? No. We got about a little over 2 hours left, so we got to get up in there. The deer will probably move late there anyway. But thinking about that deer, it's been 25 months since I last saw that deer on the hoof, and it was at the scrape tree. Almost 25 months exactly. It was the 18th of October 2022 when he was a 3-year-old. So maybe we can celebrate the 25th month anniversary almost of sighting him and dragging him out with the little scooters this evening instead of that doe. I can hear geese going over. That cold northwest wind is pushing them south. There's a small buck out in the plot. He's been out there almost since we got here. Pretty short hunt for us. I'd say we got maybe half an hour of filming light left. And then we're going to be having to sneak out of here. Not sure what spooked that group of does and fawns. All of a sudden they just took off. I'm sure it wasn't us. Tomorrow, well, I haven't quite decided yet on what the plan is for tomorrow. We're either going to go back to the same spot where we were at this morning where we saw that Jordan buck, or we're going to go back to the stand further down on that point where we've been hunting quite a bit. That's the direction that that buck went, but you know, it's there's no real logic to it. You just have to hunt careful and put your time in and get lucky. And we've been trying to hunt careful. We've definitely been putting our time in. So now we just have to get lucky. So whichever spot we pick, it's just going to come down to, you know, him being in that area. I still think I could have called him in this morning if it wouldn't have been so windy. So maybe that's kind of our ace in the hole. You know, if I do see him in the distance, and if it's not so windy that he can actually hear the call, there's a pretty decent chance, at least to my way of thinking, that I can get him to come in. If anything else shows up out in the plot here, we'll show it to you. Otherwise, I'm going to close it up right here. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you right back here again soon for the next episode of Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. Wait for that gust. And remember to always dream big. He's afraid to say it loud. He said big.